Hi, this video is mainly about Scenebuilder. So Scenebuilder is a program that you can download for creating scenes or content of windows in JavaFX. So it can create a special kind of file called an FXML file, and if you're working in IntelliJ like I am here, you can see this is a JavaFX program which I've shown how to make in another video and run and everything. You can see when I run the program a window pops up, and this window is called a stage in JavaFX. But the part that's in here is what we can create in Scenebuilder. We can either use Scenebuilder for doing that, or we can do that in the program directly by doing this coding here. Let me show you. So here is the code directly, and we can do coding directly in here. We can add stuff and remove stuff and stuff like that. But in this video I'm going to show you how to use Scenebuilder for working with these FXML file, and I'm going to use this as an example, this simple application here on how we can change the user interface. If we look into this, we can see that there is already in IntelliJ a scene builder that is built in, but unfortunately, in my experience, there's problems with this built-in scene builder. And if you look online, you can find hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have questions on why things are not updating, why things are not working. So the integration with IntelliJ is not that great. And this is not only IntelliJ, also other IDEs have the same problem. So it probably has to do with the way that Scenebuilder works itself. So I would always recommend, and this is also what I'm going to show in this video, that we're going to use Scenebuilder as a complete standalone program. So what Scenebuilder can do, it can write these XML files, which is a specific form of XML called FXML. So if we go look back at the website, Scenebuilder is a program that is being maintained by an organization called Gluon. So Gluon has the program available to download. So unfortunately, it doesn't have that many updates. So the newest one is for Java 11, and I actually have JDK 14 installed, so that might cause some problems, but let's try it out anyway. There are no newer versions right now, but if you can find a newer version later that works for newer versions of Java, then it's probably a bad idea. It's very easy to find the one you need. If you're using Debian Linux or some RPM based Linux, you can use these. If you're using Mac, you download this one, and if you, like me, use Windows, we even get a nice little installer. So I'll just download the newest version here, download, and it says it's downloading, but nothing is happening. So now I downloaded the program. Let's try to do the installer. There are some terms, I read them before, so I can just click here and install, and I need administrator privileges and finish. So now that will be installed like any other program in Windows. I can find it here, Scenebuilder, and going to pin it to the taskbar so that I have it down here now. I think that's much easier when we're working with that. Just like I have IntelliJ, I now also have this. So I can open up this program totally standalone like this, and we can see different kinds of applications. You can also develop for mobile if you want to go in that direction. That's not something I'm covering in the videos because there's a lot of problems in that, unfortunately, as things are right now. It can be quite problematic, and it's changing all the time. But if you want to go down that road, go to the Gluon website and look into mobile programming with JavaFX. There's a lot of nice helping tools, and you can pay also for some tools to easily create mobile applications using JavaFX. But I'm only going to cover desktop here. So there is basic application, complex application, and empty. So let's start out with a basic application that will give us an insight into what it can do. So register, no. So if we open up a basic application, what we can see, it already did. We have some nice graphical user interface here that we can work with. So what does this consist of? So first off, we have like, it says drag components here. So this is kind of empty. And we have this part up here, which is a file menu. And we can see over here, there's this tree-like structure that actually sets this up for us. So there are different layouts in Scenebuilder, and the one they chose here is the one called VBox. And VBox stands for vertical box. So that is when you want to align everything into vertical alignment, meaning this one is vertical, this one is vertical. And we can see VBox has two things. It has a menu bar and an anchor pane. If I click them, it's specifically this one and this one. Two different things. And these are aligned vertically. So that means if we did, there's another one called HBox, which aligns them horizontally. So that would place them horizontally. So then this menu would be here and the other one would be over here, which would look kind of weird. So VBox is nice here. If we look into that, we can see that the menu bar here is smaller than the anchor pane. If we look into the VBox, it has different things over here we can look at. It has like three things. It has properties, it has layout, and it has code. The code part, to start with the last one, the code part is for integrating behavior into this. So that means all the code that we're going to do in Java, this is the way that it will actually interact with this. So if we want something to happen when we click here, we need to go into the code to actually say, when it's clicked, do this and that. So this is for integration with the code. We'll look at that later. Then there's the other one called layout. This has to do with how is the VBox, if it's the VBox, how is this VBox going to be shown in regards, and this is very important, in regards to whatever is surrounding it. So in this case, there's nothing really surrounding the VBox. It's the top one, so it will just fill the entire screen. We can also see it says here preferred width and preferred height. So that means the VBox will be 640 times 400 pixels. So if I want to make it bigger, for example 800 times 600, I can do that. And we can also see that the menu bar is still nicely in the top, and the anchor pane, this one is called anchor pane, is in here. So they kind of just go with the flow. They expand and dependent on what it looks like. So that's pretty nice. It will do that oftentimes when you use the computed size. So if we look into menu bar here, we can see that everything inside of this says that it uses the computed size. So this menu bar here just uses the computed size for height and width and everything. And the reason why it has this specific height here is just because that it is filled by these menu. Let's just open them up. It has a menu called File, a menu called Edit, and a menu called Help. So if these were bigger, then this would also be bigger. So this is how we do that. We could also force these preferred width to something like 300, but it wouldn't actually change anything for this specific kind of layout here. So depending on which layout you're using, these will be different. One of the things that I wanted to show, which is kind of weird for me in the beginning when working with this, is if you look at this, I'm inside of the menu bar, but if we look up here, it says VBox constraints here. So actually this has to do with the VBox. So this tells the VBox how this is actually shown inside of the VBox. So if I put a margin, for example, here, like 60 pixels here, it creates a margin over here because it's inside of the VBox. If I use some other thing around this, like anchor pane, the menu here would be different. I'll show you another example in a second. We better put it back, it doesn't look very great. So this has to actually do with how the menu bar is shown on the VBox. So that's why it says VBox up here. And this is a very important information, I think. Whereas the rest of this, called internal, size, position, all has to do with the menu bar itself. So if we look at menu here, there's no layout at all for that because it's automatically laid out by the menu bar. If we look at the anchor pane here, we will find that the VBox constraints are the same as for the menu bar because they're both inside the same VBox. So they have the same little menu here and here because they're surrounded by the same VBox. So if we look at the label, which is the text that is in here, we can see it has something else. If we look at anchor pane, it's covered by a VBox, so we have this. But because anchor panes are different than VBoxes, then label will have something different here. And we can see when we use anchor pane, it says anchor pane constraints. And anchor pane is kind of like just a big canvas where you have your you can decide the position precisely by using this layout here. So if I move this, we change the layout X and Y. So it's not relative to anything. So if I put it up here and I resize the size of the window, this will still be exactly here. So it's not dynamic in any way, this anchor pane. And you could have also used the anchor pane instead of a VBox and put everything there manually. So, but let me just show you something with this label. So we can kind of move it around, but we can also do something like we can say now it's 200 and something here. We could say it should always be 20 from here, and it should be like let's remove that again just by deleting it. And it should be like always 60 from here, and maybe let's say 89, just something like that. So that would mean that no matter the size of this window, this would still be at the same spot. So now it will keep the distance to the right and to the top like that. So, and we can just remove it again. So this is how we do layout in the anchor pane. So in FXML we have different kinds of layout, and now you've seen the VBox and you've seen the anchor pane, and I don't want to go in this video into too much details with these, but you can find all of these different kinds of containers, they are called. You can find them in here. And actually the editor here itself is made using JavaFX. So you can actually see all the stuff you can do, like this nice little thing here that can pop out. You can see this one is the accordion. You can see things like all kinds of these things called panes. These have to do with layout. You can do a split pane, you can do scroll pane if you want scrolling. You can do the H box, you can do grid panes, you can do dialog panes, and these are all different kinds of panes that you can use, or different kinds of containers for putting things into it. So in other words, these things doesn't show a lot of content, they are just for laying out other content. So the VBox will lay out everything vertically, and the anchor pane will lay out things on a specific X and Y coordinate. So, and we can see the menu bar has different menu items and stuff. When we click, for example, here on File, we can't kind of select that. We can select it over here. We can select different items within that, but we can't really see them here. There's a nice little feature built into Scenebuilder where you can go actually preview what you want to see. If you go up here, preview, show preview in window, you actually get a live preview of what it will look like in your program. And we see there's a whole menu here, lots of stuff, and this is all the stuff that you see in here. So we can, if we want to change this from new, or we want to change this open, or something like revert. Let's say I want to change revert into go back. I can click over here, just close this, click over here, and now I don't need to go into code because that has to do with functionality. I don't go into layout because I don't need to change the location or anything, but I go into the properties now, and I can see what can I do with menu item. And in here I can see it says revert, so I might just call it go back instead. So I change the text, and it changes the text over here, and also if I preview again, I'll be able to see that it actually says go back now. So this is how to change. So this moves into the last one, the one called properties, where we can click on any item in here. For example, a menu bar, go into its properties, and we can see we have different kinds of stuff that we can do in here. At a later point in time, I'm going to create a video about how to do like real layout with style. We can use, if you know about CSS, we can use a specific form in here of CSS called javafx CSS. So we can use that for styling everything with nice colors and stuff like that. And you can go look, click different elements in here. For example, click the VBox and see what can we do with that. We can click the menu bar, what can we do with that? We can click different menus. See, we can disable it, for example, make it invisible, stuff like that. We can go to the anchor pane, see there are different things. There's something like opaque inserts, insets. I don't even know what that is. You can try that out. And also there are some other stuff here that oftentimes you won't touch because it's not needed. But this is the properties. So oftentimes we use the properties for changing content of the anchor pane, so, or label. So if we want to change content for the label, we go into properties, and we can set the text font, text fill, all of this stuff. And if you know about CSS, you can also use that for setting the font and color and everything like that. But more about that in another video. So this is basically what it is. So now let's try to see what do we need to do to integrate. Now we have our scene builder here, and we have our IntelliJ here. So if I want to kind of integrate the two, I know it's integrated here, but as I said before, it often has some problems in here. So if I want to open up this sample FXML, I want that to open up in Scenebuilder. What can I do? So I can just right click and then click open in Scenebuilder, and the first time I do that, it will ask me, where did you install Scenebuilder? And I need to figure that out. So it actually is in here. So let's see, I can't click OK, so I'm not in the right folder right now. So probably be into the bin folder here, or maybe, I'm not sure. See if I can remember. So we have to choose the correct file directly. So I choose the scene builder exe file, which is for Windows. If you're on Mac, it will be different. So now that it knows where scene builder is, it will remember that for next time. So now I can open it directly in scene builder, which is quite nice. Let me just close scene builder completely so you can see. I don't want to save that. Do not save. So again, right click and open in Scene Builder, and because I already defined where Scene Builder is, it opens up nicely in Scene Builder. So they use kind of a weird layout for this default one in when you create a JavaFX project in IntelliJ. They use this grid pane, which is for putting everything inside of a grid. So, and we can also see here some stuff. So what I want to do is I kind of want to put everything into some all other kind of container. So if we look into the different, so let's see what's going on here. So now I can't open up containers and controls for some reason. That's weird. Let me just try again. So it looks like there's some kind of bug that whenever I want to open this up in Scene Builder, I haven't seen this bug before. It kind of loses all of the. Okay, that looks better. I just need to drag down documents like this. Okay, so if you have the same problem, it's probably because if this is put up too far, you can't actually open it. Okay, so let's try to change this a bit. So right now there's this kind of grid pane which I don't like. So I would like to do something else here. So I would like to have an anchor pane instead. So let's try to delete that and see what happens. So now I don't have anything in here. So instead I'm putting the anchor pane in here, which will give me this nice little user interface. If we look into IntelliJ and what we have right now, it says grid pane. And if I save this, let's try to save the file, go back here, I can see now it's changed into an anchor pane. Let's try to run it again. And it looks like it's still working somehow. So let's change some more stuff. Let's try to put something in here, like let's put a button in here. So I go to controls, and these when it says controls, it's all the stuff that we can control the application with. I'll put a button like in the middle here, and I will save that and go back in here, and we see now it added something called children. This is part of the way that it has to specify, and says children of the anchor pane. There's a button and it needs to be at this exact location here. And I'll click run. And we see that it does have the button here, but it kind of looks weird, right? Because if we look here, the window is bigger, and if we look here, it's kind of pretty annoying. So why is that? So whenever we create the application in the main method, it is actually setting the height and the width of the application here. So that is because we set it here to 300 times 275. If we look here, we can see that we can see that we're creating a new scene here, and we are setting the root element, which is the parent, and we set in setting the width and the height. If we remove that, um, then we haven't forced it to any specific height and width. Let's try that. So now it automatically actually follows whatever is inside of it. So now we can actually make it a bit smaller if we want. And so that if I save this, go back into my app and run it, it should actually follow that quite nicely. So I think specifying the scene size from the beginning might be an error. I think it's nicer that it just figures it out dynamically, but it might be dependent on what you need to do. So that's kind of a cool thing. Okay, so now I showed how to put a button in here. We can actually put anything we can see. As I told you, this thing here is actually made in JavaFX. So all the stuff that you can see here, like menus and buttons and everything, has been made in JavaFX. So we can put anything in here. So let's say, for example, we have something here where it says for, this kind of text field. So let's see. This is what we would call a control because it actually can do something. So if we look in here under controls, we can go down a bit, and there is one called text field and text area. The difference is this one is a multi-line one, this is a single line. And if I want to mimic this one, I use the text field, so I can actually put that in here. Because I'm using the anchor pane, it's very easy to do the layout, because if I move something, it will just stay there, and when I show it in here, it will be at the exact location. We can't see that right now, but the only problem with that is that it will stay there no matter how I resize the window. So if we want something that's more dynamic, anchor pane is not a very good choice. Let me just close these. So I should actually be able to see this, but I forgot to save it before, so now I've saved it. So now I can actually type something in here. I can also do text, and I can click the button and everything, or we can use the preview in Scenebuilder to kind of do the same thing. So that's basically how to use Scenebuilder. So I would definitely recommend that instead of clicking here and using this program here, I would just use the standalone one. I also like to have these two things separated, because one of them is about layout and stuff like that, whereas the other one is about programming. So I like to have these two, and I can easily tap between them. So I like this kind of. The only thing, you can kind of forget to save your changes here. You have to do that, and you can easily open it just by using the Open in Scenebuilder here, and you can see the code directly in here. I want to show one thing before quitting this video about Scenebuilder, and I'm going to do another video where I'm showing a bit more in detail how to get actual functionality into it. So that would be my next video. But just for showing this video, there is one thing that kind of got lost in translation. So if we look here, I changed into an anchor pane. So I deleted the old pane. If we look at this project here, which is another project, and we look into the application, this is the original. This was the same in here, so this is what I changed. So one thing we can see here, which is very important to understand, is that any user interface here, if we wanted to be able to do anything, we need to be able to do some programming on it. And right now there is nothing controlling this user interface. It's out of control. No, it's just we need some controller for it. There is actually something here called controller, so we could use that for controlling this sample here, but we haven't defined it anywhere. The way that we do that is actually we need to specify what is the name of the controller. We don't want the file name, we want the name in Java. So for this one is called, because it says package sample, this one we would call that sample.controller. Let's just look in here. So we see it says fx colon controller equals sample controller. So in this program here, everything is actually coupled to this controller, but over here, this one got lost. So if we want a controller for this, we need to specify that controller. We can either do that by typing fx controller like this, and then typing in sample controller. But I wanted to show the graphical way of doing it, so I'll just cut it out and go into Scene Builder. And how do we do that here? If we look down here, way in the bottom left, there's something here called controller, and it's empty. So what we need to do here is we need just to type sample dot controller. If we do that and save it, we can see it does the same thing in here. Did I save that? I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of like it thinks it's already saved. Now I'm saving it. It didn't actually change. Yeah, it did. I just didn't see it. So here it is now. FX controller equals sample controller. And that's exactly the same as I wrote before. So now these two are bound together, and I'll do another video on how can we make the user interface talk to the actual program that's behind the user interface. And why is this actually two different things? I'll also explain that in my next video about the controlling FXML files.